Today is January 3rd, and I have to tell you people something. These are totally unrehearsed.
Oh, you mean you don't think they can tell that?
No, no. It takes, I'm going to tell you, there are people that actually practice looking as impromptu as we are.
Well, what we do is choose a subject. By the way, I'm Lou Morris, and this is Deborah Colleen Rose.
The queen for the day. And you've won a new refrigerator so that you can be queen of the kitchen. Remember that show, Queen for the Day? And they always won kitchen crap. What the hell?
But that's where the woman belongs, right?
Okay, well, that's not what we're talking about today. So don't get your panties in the water.
No, we're talking about something more esoteric, I guess.
Oh my God, she's gonna pull out the big words. I better get my dictionary ready. I try not to use words over 5 letters
Uh,
because I'm used to dealing with that mentality in my family.
so this is season 2 of We're Talking Again,
Yeah,
and
episode 1, season 2.
and we would like to talk about.
Okay, so this was the question I sent to Luann, and I thought she would tell me it was stupid, but she agreed to it. So if y'all don't like this, blame her because she could have vetoed it. So here's my thought. They always say, first of all, people will say, like, well, you have an angel looking over you, and it's your mother, your dad, your grandmother, whatever. Okay. Well, first of all, people cannot be angels, is my thoughts. Okay. The second thought process, look at her blink, like, what the hell is she doing? My second thought is that there seems to be two trails that people go down. One is that when you die, you become totally enlightened and you get all the answers to the universe. And my question is, if that's the case, where do all these poltergeists and ghost hauntings and things being thrown across the room and all that crap, where does that come from? Because my theory is that when we die, we might get a few answers, but we're still the same person that we were when we were in this body, and we don't become like totally enlightened. And so then going further down the rabbit hole, does that mean that, like the Catholics believe, that there's purgatory and all this stuff, or maybe there's 7 levels of heaven and you only get to be in the basement until you reach a certain level, or what? So what does all that mean? There you go. Now discuss.
Well, I don't know about 7 levels, but I do believe that once we pass, we don't really change. We have to go through a process of change and a process of, we see our life, we see the life we lived, we're able to peek in on our beloveds, more than 4 letters there. You get that. And find out what's going on.
Yeah, but you know what? Even in the movies with vampires, once they get bit, they now become beautiful. It's like, she was a good looking woman before she got bit. And then after she got bit, because now she's technically dead, everything about her is scrumptious. She has flawless skin, has long flowing hair that she didn't have before. So there's even with like, myths and storylines like that, we become perfected in death. See, I had a point.
Wow, that's a human construct. Once we die, we're spirit.
Construct, or is it a fallacy?
I do believe that we can be the person we want to be. Like, if I want, once I pass, if I want to look like I'm 30, I could do that.
Why? Are we having sex up there? Are we dating? I mean, really, why do we
No,
care what it's like when we dead if we're not in a body? I mean,
it's what we want to see. And so I don't think there's mirrors up there or anything, but I think that we do develop into what we want others to see. But that's my belief. That's not somebody else's belief.
yeah, but why do you believe that? Is it just because that appeals to you, or do you have
Yep.
like some
Yep.
theologian
Nope.
book that
Because
you
that
got
appeals
that?
to me. Because that's how I see my life after.
Who cares though? Here's my who cares? I mean, really, does it
no one
matter?
cares but me, but I care about
Well,
myself.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that way. I mean, why do we spend so much time thinking about what it's going to be like when we die instead of focusing on what the hell we're doing today? That's my
Well,
point.
I think that we all at some point in our life spend a little time about what is the afterlife and what does it mean to me. I think we all do.
Already did.
But I don't think you're correct. I think you're correct that we should not spend a whole lot of time on it because today has to be lived.
Okay, we're done. Bye. No, I hate you so bad today. I can't help it.
And I am I'm of the belief that yeah, your past is your past, but let's try to leave it back there because that's why the rearview mirror is so small and the windshield is so big.
Yeah.
You
Boy,
know.
you're good with that cliche. That was good.
Yeah.
You pull
But
that out of
you
your.
know, we all get in a funk and we all get down and we all forget that we need to concentrate on today, not the past. But I think that my life was so wrapped up in 5 people as I grew up that I still can't let go of those 5 people. And
Well, that brings up my next point. Boy, it's like you read my mind. Okay, so I was thinking about this yesterday. Yesterday was the anniversary of, no, it was the day after my dad's death anniversary. He died New Year's Day. Yesterday was the second. I was all confused with the calendar yesterday. But I was thinking about this, and because I've had a very different reaction to my dad's death than I have with anybody else that I've loved dying. Okay. And so, and I love my dad, but we had a horrible, horrible relationship. Horrible. And I usually think that bad relationships is a combination of both people, but honestly, through years of anguish and reflection, I don't know what I could have done differently. I really, really don't. I don't. And because I would go and I would ignore him, I would go in and shower him with love. I would do all kinds of, and nothing ever seemed to matter or change. But when my husband died, when my brother died, when my friends have died, I grieved, and I would sit down and I would tell myself, you're experiencing a loss. I get that, Deborah. You're experiencing. I talk to myself a lot. Can you tell? You're experiencing a loss, but in essence, after a certain period of time, this gets to be selfish. It gets to be a pity party because these people have moved on, and you don't even know
I
if they're
believe
even
that.
thinking about you. So you're putting a lot more effort into a relationship that no longer exists than they probably are. Because if they were, they'd come back and talk to you. Okay.
Yeah,
And I
I
know a lot.
agree.
Yeah. And since I have talked to dead people, I know that's possible. So that's not just whimsy on my part. But when my dad died, it was like, I'm done. I don't have a responsibility. I don't have an obligation. I don't have to worry about him being bitter anymore. Everything that had gone on in our relationship that was negative was now gone. And you always hear about losing hope is the worst thing that can happen to you. Well, I had nothing to hope for anymore. It was freedom. I had no reason to hope that relationship would change anymore. And I have been totally at peace with him gone. Totally at peace.
My father's death was somehow not as traumatic as my mother's because I was just barely, I guess I was barely 20, and those people in church that I trusted with my life, trusted with my spirituality, kept telling me that she was going to be fine.
Well, we don't care what she's going through. The point is they should have been focused on you. Are you fine? What are you experiencing?
Mhm.
Is there something that can be done to help you fill this gap? Because regardless, that's okay. Thank you. That's such a good point. Because no matter how you feel about that person, it still leaves a gap. It's just like if you have a splinter in your finger and you pull that splinter out, there's still a hole that has to heal, even though you're relieved to have that splinter gone. Oh, I'm
Right.
preaching. That's that plate.
So, okay, so we're deviating already from that, but
So are people still assholes when they die? That's the key. That's the question. Are they still assholes?
I
Let's
think
take a vote
there's,
first. Yes or no? You say yes, they are. No, they aren't.
I say yes, but
I
they
do
can
too.
evolve. I think they can evolve.
Well, I think they're supposed to.
Yes,
Now,
but
do you believe in reincarnation?
yes.
I don't know. I don't have enough information to have a full-fledged opinion. On one hand, I'm like, God, I hope not. But on the other hand, going back to my strict Baptist roots as a child, they said, you
Hmm.
come here, you get a chance to make it right, and then you go to heaven or hell. My logical brain kicks in and going, okay, God loves me unconditionally. He made me the way I am. He knew what the hell I was going to do before I did it, but he doesn't control that. It's still a free will, free choice, but he knows what I'm going to choose. Now, why would he put me on this earth for, compared to infinity, 70, 80, even 90 years if I'm lucky, and say, if you don't get it right, you're screwed? That makes no sense to me. So maybe there's reincarnation, or maybe there's another universe that we go to, or maybe there's 7 levels of heaven, but I don't think it's a one-shot thing where you get it right or you're screwed. I can't
No,
accept that.
I don't think so either. Um, it's just that I have so many occurrences where things feel like deja vu, that I had been there, done that it makes me feel like, wow, okay, so have I done this before? What is this? A premonition that I had before? Is this,
I read a
I mean,
book about this once, and one of the theories in the book, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm telling you, my ADD is just bad today. I'm really struggling here. But it said that a lot of times that deja vu is actually memory in our DNA, that one of our ancestors experienced something similar to that, and it
okay.
triggers that DNA memory. I thought, well, that kind of makes sense. Not
Yeah,
everything, but
that
I can
can
see
make
that,
sense to me.
you know.
But I let me give you an example of a living person that wreaked havoc in a home.
Oh, yeah, are there cameras in my house?
Now, we went to clear a house because someone had passed there, and everyone thought it was the woman who had passed that was causing trouble. Things were being moved, um, you know, animals and things outside were not showing up anymore. They had hummingbirds that would that they fed that all of a sudden were not coming back. And I mean, there were just all kinds of things that were like being repelled by the ghost, right? Or the spirit that was left behind. Well, we found out that yes, the spirit was there. She was comfortable there, but she says, I'm not doing this. And she gave the name of the man who left the house. So the only thing that we could come up with as an investigative, we investigated everything, is that this man was so toxic, this man was so negative, that he left every portion of the home that he lived in coated with it.
Okay, did you hear your language though, what you just said?
No.
You said his energy. So this brings up another possibility, is that his spirit, which is him, his soul, not his soul, but because soul is your mind, spirit is our infinite being, or was it just residual energy that was so heavy and so toxic, he's not there in his spiritual form, but his energy is. And that's
Correct.
another thing that has to be determined, I think.
Yes, this time the man was still alive. He had moved off. They sold the house,
So
but
it was energy.
his toxic energy was still there. We cleared the house. We did some prayers. We talked with the deceased. The people who own the house now agreed that she could stay as long as nothing else happened. We went to the back porch and it was covered in hummingbirds.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
the energy had been released. And of course, they're friends with this man, the people who own the house. And I said, so our recommendation is that you meet with him other places instead of your home.
Okay, so now you brought up another point. Are you doing this on purpose?
No, this is just the flow.
So the next point is that you said that she agreed. She agreed. And this is where I take exception to a lot of paranormal investigators and house blessers and cleansers and stuff, is that they come in there and they think they're going to strong arm these spirits into doing what they want them to do because they have the power of Christ, or they have a really great sagebrush that's been blessed by the shaman, or whatever. And they think that they're going to strong arm these spirits. But the bottom line is that it's all about free will and choice. And you can go in there and you might be able to push them out for a while, but if they don't want to be out, they're not going to stay out. So you have to have a conversation with them, and you have to come to an agreement, and you have to give them a reason to want to leave,
Jennifer Williams Colley had a very good rapport with this woman who passed. I can't remember her name. I'm going to say Barbara, but we also had a spirit, dang it. I think it's called a K2 box where it lights up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And this particular spirit was doing an excellent job of telling us red for no and green for yes. And she was also talking to Jennifer.
But see, you were talking, you weren't commanding.
No.
That's Jennifer's very good at what she does. And
so we were talking, and we were like, well, don't you want to move on? Don't you, this is what death was designed for you to move on. You don't have to. Well, she really wanted to stay. I just want to be comfortable right here, is kind of the way she put it. And the owners of the house said, as long as we can do this amicably, and as long as you will listen when we tell you it's not good, then we don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. I have conversations like that all the time when I'm doing stuff like that. Even when I'm dealing with what I call my fallen angels. A lot of people refer to them as demons. I call them fallen angels because regardless of what they're doing now, they're still angels. They're just not walking in the grace of God. So I have found that reasonable conversation gets you more of what you want in this life and in the other life than anything else. So that's the way I approach it. But I do believe this. I do believe there's a holding place, like a bus station, or a waiting area, the lobby of the hotel, maybe. Because when I had my near-death experience, there was thousands of people just kind of wandering around, hanging out. But it was a cool place to hang out. They weren't uncomfortable, that type of thing. And and that's where I was, and that's where and my grandmother and my husband and my brother came out to meet with me. And I do feel like they came out. I don't feel like they were in that holding place. I could see them walking
towards you.
Yes, and it didn't feel like they were part of this group because I could see them clearly. I couldn't see the other people clearly. And they told me that I had a choice of staying or going. So I've always been a big proponent about choices, because I've always hated having people tell me what to do and blah, blah, blah. Very rebellious. But the idea that even in death, I had a choice was fascinating. And of course, I decided to come back and almost didn't make it. It was hard. It was very hard getting back into my body. Took a long time.
I was in a coma for 10 days.
I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, in 2008. But I don't remember anything about it. And I think that's because it was artificially induced by the doctor.
Ah,
It was not something that occurred naturally. So, but I do get a feeling that during that time, I was not alone.
well, I'm never alone, and I forget about that sometimes because I don't think about it. And but I had a gig New Year's Day, and a woman walked in and she goes, "Do you know that you have a 30-foot angel standing behind you?" And I said, "Yeah, people tell me that all the time." I said, "What bugs me about that is that why God thinks I need a 30-foot angel? Why do I need
Because
one so
you're a
big?"
big, you're. Have you not seen these pictures of these angels after a hard night?
It really takes a big. Man, it reminds me of that song Big John about the guy that held up the mining shaft so all the other guys could get out. But it was just weird to be at a party, New Year's Day, middle of the afternoon, no woo woo going on supposedly. And she walked in and she went, "Damn, do you know that you have a 30-foot angel behind you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I
Yes,
don't
he's
talk.
here all the time.
Yeah, I don't talk to him. He doesn't talk to me, but he does whatever he's supposed to do." And she goes, "Why don't you talk to him?" I said, "Because that's not my job and it's not his job, you know?" And so then we got into this huge philosophical discussion about what angels are and aren't to us. And I said, the bottom line is that the only person that commands angels is God. They do his bidding, not ours. And I said, that's why I have an issue with a lot of people that are into this angel theology stuff because they think that they can pray to angels and command angels, and you can't. You can talk to them if you want to. There's nothing wrong with talking to them, but you're not going to tell them what to do. They work for God. They don't work for us. They work for our benefit through God. But so we spent our entire time talking about that. She didn't get much of a reading.
Well, uh, it's because of that discovery where we had a spirit and we had human energy that I think that there is a difference. Because I think that, like you said, when they are toxic in real life and they pass, I don't think they automatically change into a cherub or a happy person I mean, it takes time.
I do think they can have an epiphany, though.
Yes.
And
And
here's why I think that my dad's passing is another good example. That my dad had a lot of bitterness. Life had not been the way he expected it to be for lots of reasons.
mm-hmm.
And I don't think he ever truly held himself accountable for his part in that, but that doesn't matter. But I often wondered what his passing would be like for him because of the bitterness and things. But my stepmom said he got up, he had COPD and some other health issues, and he got up to go to the bathroom at like 3:30, and he came back to the bed and he was sweating, which he would be sometimes at night, and she was wiping him down, and he just leaned back into her arms and sighed just really softly, and then he was gone. I mean, what an incredible way to die. And in the arms of someone that loves you
Mm-hmm.
peacefully without any rigor and shaking and violence to the body. And that makes me think that he saw something that finally was putting him on the path to some peace of mind. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, my father passed the same way.
So you get it.
Yeah, I do.
So
And his sister had been watching TV, and she stood up, they think, had a heart attack, and then just sunk back in the chair.
that's why my stepdad died too. My
Mhm.
mom said he was sitting there at the breakfast table and he called her name and then boom, was laid out. So that may not necessarily have been peaceful for him though. It depends on if he was ready to go or Maybe he was calling out because he wasn't
Well,
ready to go.
I think when you deal with a lot of death, you have to be ready all the time. Does that make sense? I
Yeah.
mean, when I was 20, I lost my mother. Before I turned 23, I lost my father. I lost a grandmother in there in between. That same year my father passed, I lost a grandfather that I was very close to. And there's somebody else in there. But then 2 years later, I lost a friend. And it's just that there has to be, to me, there has to be a reason that I experienced that.
Not necessarily for you though. It could be that they experienced it and you were part of the facilitating it.
Well,
And here's why I say that. Here's why I say that. I have never actually been with someone as they passed out of their body. Okay.
mm-hmm.
But I have had 5 people that I can think of immediately. There may be more that I have talked to the day before they died, and basically I have walked them through the process of giving themselves permission to leave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about what they felt like they hadn't resolved, and reassured them that it's where it's supposed to be and it's not their job, giving them permission to leave, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
All of that. So, but then I've not been there when they've actually passed. And
I
I
think I
wondered
could
why
do
that.
that today,
Oh,
but I
I
can do
wouldn't
that
mind
one.
doing it. I just wondered why I don't get to, because I would like to be there if it would offer them comfort or give them courage, or, hold their hand or whatever it is they need. But the conversation always takes place like less than 24 hours before they actually die. And it is a talk of death, what their fears are, what their hopes are, what they're frustrated about,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes who they're mad at. And sometimes their anger is what's keeping them here. That's what's fascinating.
All right. Well, I did have an opportunity to talk to my friend Gussie, who was 92, 94, I don't remember. And I asked her, I said, "Are you ready to go?"
Are you ready to go? I am ready.
She says, "Yes, I feel calm and peaceful. I have God in my life, and I'm not afraid." So when she did pass, it was like I was sad that she wasn't going to be in my life anymore, but I did not have that traumatic experience that I had with my parents.
Well, but were your parents sick
Yeah,
before they died?
yeah.
Okay. Because all of my friends that have died like that were all very ill with cancer or something similar.
Mm-hmm,
So it was a
mm-hmm.
relief for them to be out of pain, you know.
Yes. I can remember somebody asking me after mom died, "Do you want to get up and have a discussion with us? Do you want to talk about it?" I said, "No, my mother is no longer in pain and maybe I can rest too."
My bitch be gone spray. I forgot to spray it before we started.
So, anywho, I don't know. I think that it's very odd. I was sitting in my living room, just everything was quiet, and I was in my chair, and I heard Gussie go, "Luann," and I was like, "Yep, what?" "I'm fine. Everything's great." I said, "Thank you for letting me know." Because I didn't get to see her before she passed.
That brings up a question. Do we ever have anyone that talks to us and says, "Hey, things are not fine here. I need some help"? I've never had that conversation.
No, I don't think I have either.
So it does bring up another point then, is that if asshole people are still assholes when they die, do they reach out to this world on purpose, or did they just flailing around like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum?
Well,
Are
I
they
think
are they aware? Are they cognizant?
I think you were right when you said that they're filled with anger. You said that people who are angry at the circumstances. And that's a part of it.
A lot to think about. And my thing is, you know how I'm going to be mad if I die? You know why I would be mad when I die? Is if we
Why?
die and we don't get any of these answers. I'll be
Oh,
like,
I
all right, send me. I'm not staying here if this isn't any better.
I believe we'll have answers. It may not be
We
the ones,
better.
it may
We
not
better.
be the ones we expect or want, but we're going to have answers. How about the fact that
Is it a fact or opinion?
opinion?
Okay.
I just lost where I was going. Talk among yourselves.
Here's the subject. Mingle. No. Um, we're working on this book called Ghost Stories from Cyberspace. And I'm really have not gotten the response that I had wanted yet. We've got, I think, 4 stories in the hopper, or at least in the works. I want to have at least 12. But I'm really hoping to get some intriguing stories that if they don't at least give us some answers, give us more questions. Because I don't think we're asking the right questions sometimes.
Yeah, I can see where because once you pass, it's not a physical world anymore.
Well, and here's my other problem. Not the obvious ones, okay? So, like, I was at a party working one night, and this doesn't happen very often, but occasionally people sit down and go, "Are you a medium or do you talk to the dead?" And I don't really identify as a medium. I don't like traditional words, first of all, because I don't like labels. Um, I also don't like being labeled with something that might leave out the concept that I do this from a Christian perspective, because that's my commitment. So generally, I just say no. So if they ask me point blank, "Do you talk to the dead?" And I'm like, "Well, I have," because I'm going to tell the truth. And this woman started crying. And this was a couple years ago, and it was a Christmas party. I'm like, "Ma'am, please don't cry. It's a Christmas party." And, people crying at your table is not a good sign to the rest of the guests sometimes, even if they're crying happy tears. And she goes, "Well, I was just hoping that you could give me some information." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but all I'm doing tonight is, little readings." And she left, and all of a sudden I had this vision of a wedding veil over a face, but it was a man under the wedding veil. And he yelled at me very forcefully, "Call her back." Now, through past experiences, I do what I'm told under those circumstances because it can get ugly. And I have no control of my environment at a party when it gets like that. Okay. So I called her back and I said, "Look, I don't do this. I sit here and be very quiet and nod your head and smile and we'll talk." Okay. And I said, "I have a man here in front of me and he told me to call you back and he's in a wedding veil. Do you know who this might be?" And she just busted out crying. I'm like, "Ma'am, what did I tell you? We have rules here." Nod your head and smile. She goes, "That's my brother. He died on my wedding day." And so he confirmed his name. I made him tell me his name. And then we had a general conversation and she got what she needed out of that. But here's my point. My point is that why couldn't he just come to me and say, "My name is Carl and that's my sister. Can you call her back for a minute?" Instead of going through all that elaborate bullshit of here's this man's face behind a wedding veil and getting in my face screaming, "Call her back." What is that all about? Are they just drama queens when they die or what?
I think that somehow they are trying to give us a clue about what we need to tell this person.
Well, I can
Uh,
live without that crap. I'm just going to be honest.
I I don't channel the dead all the time. I mean, thank God. But when I was doing a reading at I Declare, and those are usually happy times. You just do the little thing and you say,
Right,
"Hey, here's what I
right,
see that you've been doing. Here's what you need to do to fix it, if that's what you want to
right.
do." And so this woman is sitting across from me, and usually, the table's not big, so you feel pretty close. All of a sudden, she sits back in the chair, and I feel all this anger hitting me from the side, and it's her father. And I said, "Oh, okay." I was not prepared to be hit with so much anger, and I said, look, I don't usually talk about someone who's passed except what the cards tell me. I said, but your father is here and he's very angry that he passed. She goes, well, he was young.
Oh,
And I said, he feels like that things are unfinished and he's upset because you and your sisters and brothers are all over the world or all over the United States and not close anymore. Big round saucers. And she continued to sit back in her seat, and I felt like she was getting further and further away from me. I said, I don't usually give these sort of, I said, but he's just here in my face. And I said, and I finally turned and I said in front of her I said, you've got to calm down. You've got to reel in this anger. This is not her fault. And you could feel it dissipate. It didn't go away, but it did dissipate.
well,
But it was just too
don't you
much
feel
for
like,
me.
but don't you feel like, I don't want to say that, don't you have a feeling of satisfaction, but don't you have a feeling of buoyancy when you're able to provide that kind of relief?
I guess so. Yeah, because he's like, and I said, look, if you want to talk to your daughter, you can, but it has to be with unconditional love. You can't bring this anger to her.
I'm not facilitating that unless you do meet my requirements.
And I said it out loud, so she knows what I said.
Right.
And I said, he just wants you to try to bring the family back together. That's what he wants.
Well, the thing about it is that to me, it's like the more information we get, the more questions I have personally, and the one thing that I just find absolutely frustrating is to only get partial information. But I have to remind myself, because of what I believe and where I come from with my gifts, is that we are not meant to know all things. We're only meant to know things in part. And
Right.
I don't think it's because God's playing tricks or having games. I just don't think our little human brains can comprehend everything out there. And we're only given as much as what we can deal with.
Well, it's strange when you are so in tune to spirit that all of a sudden, to me, um, love and anger are two feelings that are very easy to send across between spirit and human.
Well, and one of the things that I think is interesting is that very few people really hate someone else. What they hate is feeling like this person doesn't care about them. And so the feeling of that they're being denied transforms into a focal point, and that focal point is hate toward that person, but it's not truly hate of that person.
Well, I also got the impression that he was more angry at himself and the situation that happened, and how the family just kind of broke apart after he died.
So he was mad at himself, really.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that makes
but it was
sense.
very, very, and I think he had been gone. I want to say 5 or 6 years or longer. So he's been carrying that around.
Well, when I'm really angry at someone, it's generally, I can pinpoint it back to where I feel like this person has invalidated me or has refused to see me for who I am. or to take in consideration that maybe there's more to my life than seeing to their needs, you know?
Yeah.
And then those are the things that make me the angriest is that I get treated like I'm chattel, or that I'm not even chattel, because that means you're a breathing animal, at least, that they just treat me like I'm a tool to facilitate making their life better. And when I get really frustrated and upset and angry, that's really the root of what's going on for me personally.
Um, I don't, do you know if that football player passed that had collapsed?
No, I haven't been following
Well,
that, to be honest.
I didn't want to talk about him, but his teammates, they canceled the game. He was in complete cardiac arrest, and
Good Lord.
his teammates were wandering around the field crying, you know, these big tough football players. But I can see where if that is the case, he's young, he's athletic. It's just that something happened, and if you pass because of that,
What's
I
his
would
name? And
be,
I'll get it real quick.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
See, I don't follow sports or football, and I knew somebody had had something happen to him on the field, but I didn't really pay attention to it because I don't follow sports.
I'm trying to remember what team it was,
Buffalo Bills, I do know that.
but that would be
Darmore Hamlin.
yeah,
It says his heartbeat was restored and he was transferred to the U.S. Medical Center for further. He's currently sedated and listen in critical condition.
yeah. But
So that's sad, though.
yeah, and there's no rhyme or reason. And I think that that's what this young father happened to him. He was there 1 second and gone the next with no explanation.
Well, in reality, if you take anything from myths or the Bible, whatever, people used to live to be 900 years old. So at this point of the world, death doesn't make any sense for anybody because nobody's living to be 900 anymore. And
No.
why not? Why don't we live to be longer?
Well, that is a darn good question, isn't it?
Well, I personally think it's because you would lose your mind because of all the changes that you would have to go through. I mean, look at the changes just in our experience. We're in our 60s, and look at how different the world is from when we were children to it is now. And, you know, I always get tickled when people go, "Oh, remember when we used to go to such and such restaurant and they're not even here anymore, and you just can't get good fish anymore. You can't get a good steak or what, and they're having all this horrible remorse over a restaurant. Dude, get out and find another restaurant. I mean, really? Remember Piggly Wiggly? Yeah, I was a cute little pig. There's other grocery stores. Go to the store.
Well, there's a difference between reminiscing and being upset about it.
Some people are really upset. I think that's where a lot of these Karens come from. They're upset because their worlds are changing and they feel like they have no control, and they like the comfort zone that they were in for 25 years and it's been ripped out from under them. And by God, you're responsible.
I'm sorry, but we come into this world dying. Every day we're here, we're getting older and closer to death. Some people more so than others, but those that are lucky, they live long lives. In my opinion, it's because we have something to do or someone to help, or we need to be there for someone. But that's just my opinion.
I think that that's what gives us purpose and gives our life completion, fills in the gaps and stuff. I was talking to someone the other day and they were talking about death in general, and how 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 does God or whoever's in charge come up with the idea of when we die. And I said, I think that it has nothing to do with God. I think it has to do with us, and that we die because somewhere in our spirit we have made the decision that this is the best it's ever going to be for us, and we're done.
Mm.
And that sounds weird, I guess, but to me, there's something about that that resonates. So, because now it makes sense on why a baby would die. Somewhere in its spirit, it knows that this is never going to get better, and I'm not going to do anything else in this form. Makes sense why people stay until their 90s, because they know that things are going to get better, or there's a focus for them or something. I don't know. Saying it out loud, it sounds stupid and negative, but inside of me, it feels right.
Well, I should have died in 2008.
I don't think you should. I think you could have, but I don't think you should have.
That's what I meant. I could have. I mean, well, I was very close. And I guess if it hadn't been for the doctors there pushing so hard, the different antibiotics and the different methods to do things, and they kept going, taking me back to surgery and cleaning out my wound, and it was not methicillin resistant Staph aureus, but it was a Staph aureus.
That was more than 5 letters.
Methicillin resistance.
Resistant. What the hell is that?
Methicillin is a antibiotic, and it's the one thing that can really kill Staph aureus when nothing else will. So they have come up with another antibiotic, which escapes me at this moment, the name of it. But so they gave that to me, and I had anaphylaxis shot, which means I was allergic to it.
Right. Well, you were just being difficult.
Yeah. So when I finally came out of my whatever induced coma, the doctor comes in and goes, "You tried to die on me." I said, "Well, I'm pretty tough." So he goes, "Yeah, you are, because you came real close."
I just think you wanted some bed rest.
So
I'm going to tell you right now, there have been times in my life I thought, what could I fake as a disease just so I could go to the hospital for a couple of days and eat Jell-O and watch TV?
Oh, I think that what's so funny is when I woke up, I did not feel, I felt, like you said, I felt like people were there with me. You can call them spirits, you can call them, I just felt like I was surrounded by it. But then once I realized, okay, I'm awake, I'm out of that place, and there's no one here. And so I called my husband, and he goes, "Oh, that's good. Okay." I said, "Could you come up here?" He goes, "I'll see you." And I didn't see him till 9 o'clock that night.
Okay, that's a whole nother show that we can talk about, because when I had my daughter, my husband at the time came up there for 10 minutes for the 3 days that we were in the hospital. And I was so out of it for whatever reason. The nurses kept coming in there, patting my hand, going, "I'm sure he has a reason to be busy." And I'm like, I don't give a shit, he's not here. They were all feeling bad for me because I had a baby and my husband wasn't coming to see me. But there's something to be said about this.
I just know that in my instance, if it had been reversed, I would have been up, dressed, and in the car and going to
Absolutely.
immediately.
Absolutely. But we'll talk about asshole men later.
Because that's what, I just thought, why isn't he here? Why isn't he here? And I called my mom in California and talked to her. And of course, I immediately started crying. And the nurses were, "What? What's going on?" I said, "Well, I'm awake and no one's here."
All right, so write this down. This will be one of our future podcasts. Asshole men and the women that got rid of them. That'll be one of our subject lines. And then I want to talk about this. healing through the mind. So that's what's left of the blister on my thumb. I burnt my finger the other day, and it burnt so bad that my finger actually stuck to the railing of the rack in the stove.
Ow.
And so I thought it would pull the skin off when I finally got it to release, but it didn't. And I sat and meditated on my thumb and held it on ice for an hour, and all the pain was gone within an hour, and it bubbled up. I had a huge blister for 2 days, and then it broke open, and it doesn't hurt now either, but now the skin's peeling off and stuff. But the point is that this is easily a triple third-degree burn on my thumb, and I was able to get rid of the pain and have very little repercussions from it through what I call my energy work. And I've done this before.
Well, basically the doctor told me that he thought I willed myself to not to die. And
Well,
I
that's
said,
what made me think of that.
yeah. And I said, that's very possible. He said, because we have pushed every antibiotic I know on you. And then the one antibiotic that I knew would cure you, it almost killed you.
Well, that's why I want to talk about this, because there's the power of the mind, but then there's actual moving and absorbing and controlling energy. Those are two things that are different, and they can work hand in hand, or you can use them separately. And I'd like to explore that a little bit. So, but anyway, this is season 2, episode 1.
We're talking about God knows what. That's
not the name of the podcast. That's not the name of the podcast. It's We're Talking Again. Watch out.
Yeah, because we do get off subject, but we try to go back.
I was going to say, you paused at the wrong place in that statement. We do get off the subject. That was too long a pause there. It just makes us sound like real women. Well, laugh.
This is not about sex. This is not about sex.
It should be, though.
No.
It should be.
No, I'm going to leave that up to another friend who's going to talk about sex, not me.
Who?
Jake's going to talk about sex.
Who? What the hell are you talking about?
I don't know.
Okay, she's lost her mind. All right, so we will see y'all next week, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves, if at least.
Yes, maybe we will be entertaining, if nothing else.
We should do this topless one day.
No, we should not. What did I just say? This is not about sex. This is not about promoting the body.
Oh, all right.
This is about our brains getting off subject.
All right. Tell everybody bye.
Bye. Love you.
Love your show.